And now, here's Casey Ingram.
More open spaces, more wildlife places, our hometown greener, our water cleaner. More open spaces, more wildlife places, our hometown greener, our water cleaner.
Well, welcome here to a beautiful Wednesday, and we have a really important topic. I know that it's really turned up a lot of interest online, and we're going to be talking about the Martin County Forever tax that will be on the ballot here in November coming up. Before we do, I need to thank my wonderful sponsors. First of all, Susie Nash, you guys. She was back in the studio back in April, and she's hit over 1 million listens on Spotify since then. It's fantastic. So, Susie, hope you don't mind, but she's like myself in her 50s, never too late to give up on your dreams, and she's out touring and really picking up a lot of business. So they'll be back in the area at Archie's end of September, so we're really excited about that. And also for you boaters, attention boaters, if you're looking for safe harbor during hurricane season, it is that until the end of November, or a top-notch boatyard to keep your vessel in tip-top shape, look no further than Indiantown Marina. Indiantown Marina is not just your average boat storage facility nestled in South Florida along the Okeechobee Waterway. They're a well-protected hurricane hole that savvy cruisers love to call home. They offer a full array of boatyard services or do-it-yourself. Reserve your safe hurricane harborage today and let Indiantown Marina be the ultimate caretaker for your vessel. For information, call 772-597-2457, 597-2457, or visit them online at indiantownmarina.com. And for those super yachts, any size yacht, Indiantown really can take care of any boat size. We also have Indiantown Marine Center that strives to provide its customers with an efficient and user-friendly location for servicing and storing their vessels while still maintaining cleanliness, environmental quality, and safety. They provide dockage, travel lifts, workspace, long-term storage space, and other repair and maintenance services, as well as offering a convenient hurricane haul-out program. Indiantown Marine Center is a contractor yard and can provide a list of approved contractors that our customers can engage with no markup or gate fees. Customers are also welcome to bring their own contractor, provided pre-approval is given before starting work. Look them up online, IndiantownMarineCenterFL.com, or 772-597-0800, 597-0800. So in the studio with me today, I have Merritt Matheson. He has been a repeat guest. Previously as a City of Stuart Commissioner and Mayor, and you were in earlier this year to talk about the Martin County Forever tax. So welcome back, Merritt.
Yes, thank you so much, Casey.
Well, folks, and my pleasure. We're going to cover this topic in depth over the next hour. Merritt is generously going to spend the whole hour with us because there are a lot of questions. And if you have any questions for Merritt, you can call the studio at 772-220-9788, 220-WSTU. I'm also watching my Facebook Live feed on the Casey Ingram Show for questions and comments. So the Martin County, it'll be on the ballot November 5th. It's a referendum to protect water quality, natural areas, and wildlife habitat through a half-cent sales tax. If it's approved, it will raise over $18 million a year for 10 years to acquire and preserve approximately 46,000 acres of land in specific areas. So Merritt, you're out. There's a lot of things going on, but just give us a brief overview. What, we're going to talk more in depth, but what lands are you looking to target?
So this initiative has been almost the culmination of a 2-year process that we have that the voters will have a choice for on November 5th. And a certain select group of us took a real deep dive in what's happening with Martin County, the growth we've seen, the changes we've seen, and how we can address that in the best possible manner. And so what we did was look at a funding mechanism. That's what the voters will have to choose for on the ballot. November 5th, I say, but keep in mind, everyone listening, September 26th is when the supervisor election sends out their vote by mail that begins to send those out. So voters will have this opportunity by September 26th and 27th to weigh in on this. But we started by looking at 4 key areas in Martin County and narrowing the ordinance. If we're going to ask taxpayers to help buy the land, to preserve it forever into the future, they need to know what key areas are being bought and that those are the right areas. And this ordinance only allows the tax dollars that are generated from this to purchase land in 4 critical areas. And those are, I'm going to begin with my favorite, which is the Blue Ways program. That is about 400 acres of undeveloped parcels in Martin County that are along the waterfront. Those are the qualifications, undeveloped parcels along the waterfront. And it leverages something called the Florida Blue Ways program. So all of the 4 key areas, in one way or another, can leverage state or federal grant dollars once our local taxpayer dollars are used for kind of the seed money. But the Florida Blue Ways program, think of that as your future boat ramps, your future public access to water, or just preserving your natural shorelines. And so a lot of these are in our downtown urban core.
So let me stop you for 1 second. So you're saying that these Blue Ways could actually have a public use to them. It's not just buying the land and it'll sit there. You actually could use it for a boat ramp.
Exactly. The
Okay.
Blue Ways program, I would say, is has the possibility for the most intensive use, which would be maybe a boat ramp on some of these parcels.
Right. Well, and let's go over what uses are available on these lands, because that's going to be really important to
Exactly.
folks.
That right there would be it. It's just on the Blue Ways. Other than that, you could have a trailhead or a parking lot. One of the things that came up when we started doing our research was, if those that remember, the last initiative like this was done in 2006. And we have in Martin County, like it or hate it, Sailfish Splash Water Park. That came out, and that's a taxpayer paid for water park. And that was allowed to be done in the last initiative, the last referendum that passed for conservation land, but it also allowed for parks and recreation to be built. Our committee struck that paragraph. You cannot build a Sailfish Splash water park with this ordinance.
That's
it
very-
cannot be done.
Very important. That was very controversial because everybody thought they were getting conservation land, and then we got a water park.
Exactly. And I have a problem. I've used the water park. It's great to have. But for me as a taxpayer, it is hard to go there and open up my wallet knowing that this was paid for with local tax funding. So again, to reiterate, because Casey, that is very important. This cannot be done. This is for conservation land with the most intense impact would be a boat ramp, public access, a free boat ramp, public access to waterfront. A lot of the beaches in Martin County that Martin County owns were purchased using kind of the Blue Ways program.
Let's talk about that a little bit more, because our park system, our beaches, it is what makes the treasure on the Treasure Coast and the treasure of Florida, to be honest with you. And of course, we have all just been recently completely blindsided with the state park issue locally here, the Jonathan Dickinson State Park. Nobody could even fathom that, it could be put into a golf course and pickleball courts, and they call them lodges, but it's hotels. So, that's in our national or our state park system. So let's talk about that a little bit more, because you're conserving this land. Can this kind of thing ever happen to these lands?
I'm so glad you brought that up. And I want to thank everyone listening, and you and everyone, for the absolute necessary public outcry that occurred. That is exactly what the public needs to do when we get blindsided by an insane proposal and a total curveball at this. But that came, frankly, down from the DEP in charge of our state parks. And we didn't know it at the time, but we're very thankful. The way this funding mechanism is drafted, it's an ordinance and a referendum to the voters of Martin County. Once passed, it cannot be changed. It cannot be changed by future county commissioners. It cannot be changed by the state. The only way it could be changed is going back to the voters. And in the entire time of drafting and creating this, we thought about different layers of protection to protect this land in perpetuity for generations to come. And one of the layers, if you look at the state park issue with our own beloved Jonathan Dickinson Park, that's a state park. Some of this land that we are targeting could expand Jonathan Dickinson State Park, But the difference and why the state could never touch this land as they tried to do, and we will continue to fight if they do, is that the underlying deed holder would be Martin County with any parcels, even if it's joined and expands Jonathan Dickinson State Parks, which one of the goals is to go from Jonathan Dickinson State Park to Atlantic Grid State Park. But the underlying deed holder would still be Martin County. So the state could not come in and overrule that. But then on top of that, those lands could be purchased with state and or federal grants. So that's another layer of protection. If it's purchased with a grant, you have Martin County as the deed holder, but then you have, say, Florida Forever helping purchase the land and contributing some funding for that purchase. That then is another layer of protection because they have to abide by the terms of the grant for environmentally beneficial lands, for conservation lands. But the most important thing is that it was purchased under the terms of the referendum and ordinance. And that cannot be broken. If it is, people can break the law, but there would have to be litigation and we would win.
That's something actually I want to, I think you gave me the referendum language here. I'll have to look for it, unless you have it. One thing I want to make clear, and we're going to go to public comments here in a second. Last, I think it was legislative session, any land that was owned by the municipality or the county has to be put on the website, has to be made available. You're saying because of the language in the ballot referendum, this isn't, even though it's deeded, owned by Martin County, it's not going to be part of the land that can be put up for sale,
No.
deemed by the state.
It is, there's a 75-word referendum language that the voters will see on the ballot. And that language specifically is on martincountyforever.com. Anyone can just Google Martin County Forever and pull up our website.
Ooh, I haven't.
Good. But beyond that 75 words, that's the word count we're allowed for the voter to see. That's the referendum. The underlying law is the ordinance that the Martin County Commission passed earlier this year to approve that language going on the ballot. And that ordinance goes well beyond the 75 words to describe how the funding can be used. And it's to acquire and preserve, conserve, and restore natural lands to protect water quality and the environment in the St. Lucie Estuary and in Martin County. And the specific wording of that ordinance, that can only be changed if it's brought back to the voters. So I'm not going to sit here and say they might not try. That's how the world works. But if they go and break the terms of the ordinance, we may have to go to court. But we will win if they break the terms of the ordinance.
This is very important because, again, it'll go back to voter referendum if somebody tries to sell it. It's very similar, it sounds like to me, to the ordinance in the city of Stuart that any waterfront property has to go in front of the voters to be leased or sold.
Yep, which is a wonderful ordinance. Having sat as a Stuart commissioner and mayor, I love that referendum language because, our democracy is wonderful. Putting choices out to the people when you can. You can't do it every time. That's why we have elected officials. But when you can do that on a stressful or contentious issues, you cannot get better than putting the choice out. And it costs money to do it in a proper referendum. But stuff like this, stuff like protecting all of Stuart's owned waterfront property, is worth spending a little bit of taxpayer funding to seek out and put on the ballot those important topics for every voter to weigh in on. And that's exactly a great comparison, Casey. That's exactly what this would be.
That would be.
You cannot change this language. A future commission, the state coming in and encroaching, without putting it back out to the voters of Martin County.
That's our safeguard. Let me read the referendum language, then I'm going to go to comments. Lands, This is the official wording on the ballot. Lands to protect water quality, natural areas, and wildlife habitat. Shall Martin County protect its water quality and unique character by acquiring critical natural lands in Martin County within the Indian River Lagoon South, Palmar, Loxahatchee, and St. Lucie headwaters, Blueways areas, and provide municipal infrastructure allowed by law by levying a 0.5% county sales tax for 10 years starting January 1, 2025 with an annual audit and citizen oversight. That's the ballot language.
That is the exact language the voters will see. And really important, right before you go to public comment,
Yes.
the words "and provide municipal infrastructure as required by law" is mandated by the state. Those words have to be in there, and that municipal infrastructure might cause a lot of question for a voter. That municipal infrastructure under this referendum is intended to be a parking lot, a trailhead. But those words by law had to be in the referendum language. So it already cut short our 75 words that we were allowed to use.
Okay. And we're going to go back to some of those uses on the other parcels of land, and we got to go into those as well. But for public comment, Gary, he asked, don't the different municipalities get to decide what the money is used for? And I think, Gary, you're referring to the half-cent sales tax. So does each municipality get to decide
Each
which
municipality
parcel?
will get a percentage based on their population for funding of this. The vast majority, still roughly $18 million, will go to Martin County. Unincorporated Martin County is the vast majority of the population.
Okay.
Some of the other municipalities, the city of Stuart being the next largest one, would get about $1 million a year. An election just happened, but prior to the election, and we have seeking commitments via writing from every town manager, city manager, village manager, of the different municipalities in Martin County, that they will use any funding they get to the full intent that this referendum passes. And we know at the end of the day, some of this is smaller dollar amounts, maybe $500,000 a year for something like Indiantown, between $500,000 and $700,000. It's based on their population. But City of Stuart has committed to use any funding. Now, it may not be to acquire land, because there's not that much land in City of Stuart, but they've committed to use it to the intent that the referendum, to protect water quality, stormwater treatment areas, upgrading baffle boxes, living shorelines, buffered shorelines, projects that have already gone on in the City of Stuart, and previous funding that was received from referendums in the past, the City of Stuart has done and made. And the prior commission passed a resolution agreeing to that and supporting this referendum, 6 or 8 months ago or so.
So the city of Stuart is bound by the referendum language that it has to be for the conservation or for.
They have agreed to it.
Okay.
Legally, they're not bound to use it for the specific referendum language. But these are small fractions of money. But so what we did was Martin County Forever's team went above and beyond and sought verbal commitments from the city manager or the town manager, town of Indiantown, or the village manager of Ocean Breeze, to commit to use the money under the terms of the referendum language to enhance water quality in our estuary and preserve natural resources. Knowing that in some situations, Martin County, you're going to have a lot of, this is specifically for land to be acquired in the 4 areas. For example, in the City of Stuart, there's not much land available, but they committed to do things like improve baffle boxes, muck removal in some of the city's tributaries to protect water quality, stuff that falls in line with the intent of the referendum to preserve and protect our water quality and natural areas.
That's an interesting thing, and there's not enough time right now, but people come and go. So somebody's word is good for their word, but it could be a different person down the line. Is there a possibility that you're going to be looking for, resolutions within the municipalities, Stewart, Sewell's Point, Indiantown, that it's
Yes.
in writing?
We've have a resolution, but again, I don't want to
it's a small,
mince my
small-
words. The strongest legal bind is the resolution that binds Martin County. If we, the referendum, sorry, that binds Martin
Okay.
County. If a resolution is passed, for example, in the city, that can be rescinded, as we've seen with the city recently. Ocean Breeze, for example, the village of Ocean Breeze, same thing. If they pass a resolution, that's not legally binding to do anything. But with Ocean Breeze, there's literally no land to acquire for conservation there. But if they do stormwater improvements, that in and of itself will be following the intent of the resolution.
Okay. Linda, this was her concern that we would end up with more entertainment being sponsored. We're talking about the Sailfish Splash Park, sponsored by taxpayers again. She said, thank you for clarifying that point. She was called a liar online when she brought that up last year. Gary, Martin County will use it for upland facility the way they did the Manatee Park in Port Salerno. Just judging from these comments, people already have a mistrust for government and how they're going to use it,
Casey, that is literally how we began to structure the ordinance. We went around other counties in the state that had passed ordinance like this. We sought input from residents we knew that lived in those areas, and we used Martin County's past ordinances that have passed. But we found, with advice from multiple different attorneys, the paragraphs that allowed stuff like the Sailfish Splash Water Park, that you would not be allowed to put a dredge fill location on this land. I'm not going to say and try and say that people might not try in the future, but that brings up the other reason why we have another layer of protection in this, which is a 9-member oversight committee. And that oversight committee, those 9 members, the design of that committee is not to be appointed. They will be appointed by county commissioners. They will have to be approved by county commissioners. But the members of that oversight committee aren't specifically going to say, I'm Commissioner A and here's my friend and you should sit on this committee. That 9-member oversight committee is described as different organizations around the county. Environmental organizations, an organization that represents the realtors of Martin County, an organization that represents the taxpayers of Martin County. The intent of creating that 9-member oversight committee was that they would be the watchdogs to alert the public, but also that they are part of an already established group here in Martin County, so that they can seek input from that group and they can seek advice and what they see going on with these land purchases. So that committee is not going to be just henchmen of future county commissioners or women.
Okay. Gary had a follow-up comment. He said, isn't that just an extra half-cent sales tax then for this referendum? Updating storm sewers should be covered by their CIP. If you have a comment towards that.
Again, Martin County and incorporated Martin County, the vast majority of money is entirely bound by the language in this referendum. But a fraction will go to the different municipalities based on their population. That's state law. That's the way a referendum
just no
like
way
this
around
works.
that.
That's exactly, yes. There's no legal mechanism around that. And some of these, for example, Ocean Breeze, again, there is no land for them to purchase. You're talking about, it was less than $200,000, I believe, with Ocean Breeze that they would get. And we've sought commitments that they would spend that money on various ways that would help protect the water quality in the St. Lucie River.
Linda said, could the money be used for sewer to septic under the guise of improving water quality?
In areas like Ocean Breeze, but in
The
unincorporated
municipalities.
in Martin County, no.
Okay.
No.
Also, I had some other questions that I want to go into this deeper, but there were some questions that came up before you were here on the show. Lisa said, I'm interested in hearing about the Not-for-Profit Citizen Oversight Committee. Does not-for-profit mean volunteers?
Yes. No one sitting on this oversight committee would be paid at all.
Okay.
It'd all be community volunteers.
All right. And then she wants to know with your organization if anybody's being paid, and how much and by whom with Martin County Forever.
We've sought donations, and we're working with Fireflies doing our marketing and helping,
Right,
us
to get the message out.
develop our designs for yard signs.
So you're
mails.
fundraising
It's
to-
basically we're running a campaign
Okay.
for this initiative, and yes, we're going to send out mailers just like any other campaign, and we fundraised.
There was
already.
rumors out there like somebody was getting paid six figures to try and head this up.
No,
I think that's what she's getting at.
no. The majority of our funding has been used. I mean, all of it for educating the public on this, and now we're shifting into full campaign mode. You're going to see yard signs come out, rack cards, and we can talk about where people can get those if they want to help
Yes.
spread the word. But that's where the donations that we've received have gone to, is to creating this material and then printing it. That's it.
Perfect. If land acquisition is a high priority for citizens and many are trying to slow growth and development, why aren't we reworking our current budgets to reflect that mindset? And, she applauds the initiative but doesn't support additional taxes and the oversight to achieve it. So, again, this is one of these things you're dealing with, I'm sure, as you're out there with the public. Everybody wants to save our land. It's trying to get this trust that this is going to be truly used just for the conservation.
I
of
would
this land.
ask the people listening to see how it's gone the past 10 years. And that's what spawned this initiative, because this makes it happen. If you want to vote for it and you want to make it happen, this is your chance. This, again, 37.5% of this is paid for by non-residents. And it targets these specific lands that are the best for conservation, that also are all grant eligible. So it leverages our local tax dollars on an extremely high magnitude. We're having non-residents pay almost 40% of this seed money, but then we're taking that seed money and leveraging it with state and federal grants. We're not seeing that, and we haven't historically in Martin County. The reason Martin County has so much conservation land as it does, over 71,000 acres, is because of initiatives like this in the past. Simply put, that's it. Martin County doesn't have that conservation land from buying land in its annual budget. It has come from initiatives like this. But this is targeting 46,000 acres of already labeled targeted land that, again, is all grant eligible, and this is the best way to do it. People will have a choice this November.
Merritt, are there parameters on how much you pay for the land, or can this be a potential windfall for a landowner that says, yeah, sure, you can have my waterfront land for 10 times its value?
No. It all has to be done by appraised value. So it cannot be purchased higher than appraised value. It will be all done purchased from willing sellers. The county is not going to have any authority to go out and forcefully take any land, but they're also not going to be legally allowed to pay more than market price for the land.
I think that's very key. I'm
That's
glad you
very
you-
important,
you
very
cleared that up.
important.
You were just talking about signage and materials for folks to get out and support this initiative, and you have some different places that you can pick it up. not 24/7. I won't let them say
Not
that,
24/7.
but 7 days
Yes.
a week or
Business
5 days
hours,
a week.
business hours,
There
yes.
we go. The Firefly Group. They are at 1211 Southwest Sunset Trail in Palm City, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. That's if you need to give them a call, 287-5272. Stewart Angler Bait and Tackle. We all know them. They're out there at 4695 Southeast Dixie Highway in Stewart, 7 to 7. Looks like 7 days a week, I'm thinking, but 7 to 7. And you can give them a call, 288-1219. And also, you can stop by the Stewart City Hall during the River Coalition meeting, September 26th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Of course, that's right down here, downtown 121 Southwest Flagler Avenue, and you're going to have some out front
Yes,
for
yes.
people to be able to grab. So those are some signage just to get around town. And again, the donations that people are sending into Martin County Forever, they're going to these donations and
That's
the
what the
flyers,
donations are for, is this marketing material.
which we have to market to get our message
Yes.
out. Also, you have some other events for people to participate in. Saturday, September 28th, there's a sign waving at the intersection of US 1, Canner, and Colorado. That's 11 a.m. to 12:30. Monday, October 2nd, Harry and the Natives, 5 to 7 p.m. They'll be distributing materials and waving signs. Thursday, October 3, sign waving again in US 1, Canner, and Colorado. 2 shifts, 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning and 4:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon. Saturday, October 5th, sign waving. We'll let you know what the location is. Thursday, October 10th, Dolphin Bar and Shrimp House, 5 to 7. Again, you can pick up signs and come
pick
out
up
and wave.
signs, talk, get some more information, riddle me with more questions, and,
You-
our whole committee will be there.
You're really out and about trying to answer the questions. And I think the biggest thing is you want people to be comfortable with this tax. This is going to make a 7% sales tax in Martin County. We already have the 0.5% for the
School
schools.
board.
So this is, again, just for 10 years, but it's going to be able to allow you to have funds to purchase a lot of land.
This will bring us on par with our neighboring counties at the tax rate. Not higher, on par. But also, this extra 0.5 cent does not apply to prescription medications, school supplies, groceries. Very important, just like any other extra 0.5 cent. And it does not apply to any purchase over $5,000.
So that's very important. I'm glad you cleared that up. That was a key item, especially when you're talking about groceries, the cost of items, because it's tough for people right now with
Exactly.
inflation, and I know that's a concern for everybody.
We did everything possible as a committee to look at the best way to preserve the quality of life in Martin County. And that's what this is. This is a pure grassroots, transparent push to conserve the quality of life in Martin County by protecting land, which will inherently protect our water, our recreational water, our estuary, but also our drinking water supply. A lot of people don't realize, but when they go to turn on the tap at their house, they don't even think about where that water comes from. It's pumped out of our aquifer, either the surficial aquifer or further down the Floridan aquifer. To replenish the surficial aquifer requires percolation through the land. That's how it's done. The more land that stays in natural state allows for better, cleaner water through percolation into our aquifer. So the next time you're out there and you just turn on your tap to go brush your teeth, think about that. That's what this will help for generations into the future.
And Martin County is different from north and south of us. You can drive across the county line and you know you're in Martin County because of the green spaces.
Exactly.
So that's really a big thing. And before we go in, I want to get back to the land that you're looking at preserving. We started out with Blue Ways and really didn't get into the other areas. If you want to volunteer for Martin County Forever, you can contact Lorraine Kaiser, 512-659-9022. That's lgkbradley@gmail.com. L, G as in George, K, Bradley, BRADLEY, @gmail.com. Obviously, the more volunteers you have, the more you can get your message out.
Please,
So.
please.
Merritt, tell us about, we talked a lot about the Blue Waterways. What about the other 3 areas?
So the other 3 areas, by far the largest one, is Indian River Lagoon South. That's over 27,000 acres. That contains the C-44 reservoir and STA. That's the first of 68 SERP projects being done by the federal government and the state to restore Florida's water system. It's comprehensive Everglades restoration plan. A lot of people don't think about it, but Martin County is the northern edge of the Everglades. And the reason that Martin County holds the first SERP project in Indian River Lagoon South is because of initiatives like this in the past that raised the seed money for this, for allowing Martin County to work with the state and federal government. The other two areas are Palmar and Loxalucy. The Loxalucy headwaters is just that, what it sounds like. The headwaters of the Loxahatchee River and the St. Lucie estuary, the South Fork of the St. Lucie estuary. And the best way to preserve a waterway, you have to start at the headwaters. And that's what this target area is for. Palmar contains some of the highest quality wetlands in Martin County. And we've seen that over the past few years be parceled up and sold off to individuals who are going out there and accessing the land via dirt bike or four-wheeler and degrading those wetlands. Those are the same wetlands I'm talking about when I'm talking about percolation of clean water into our aquifer, wildlife corridors, extending Jonathan Dickinson State Park to Atlantic Ridge State Park, but preserving that with a local deed so you can't have the state coming down saying they're going to build a golf course on it, preserving it the right way.
Palmar has been a controversial area just because of hunting and shooting, and there's a lot of things that are going on down there. Merritt, has anybody reached out to the landowners in these areas? Is there an appetite for them to even sell their land?
Yes. Some are, and the reason we structured this to be roughly 46,000 acres is it is going to be, purchases from willing sellers. Realistically, not all 46,000 acres are going to be purchased. But having worked in local government, if you announce that you're going to be seeking to purchase one or two parcels, those property owners then are going to elevate the cost of their land, and they're going to hold out until it's appraised at a high enough value. We sought and targeted. We wanted to target areas so we know what our dollars, our tax dollars, can be used to purchase. So what we did was we took a large enough area of land, those 4 regions, but there's many, many property owners in that land. So no one specific property owner is sitting there holding out. There are plenty of willing sellers in that land. But the entire point of this was that all of the lands are environmentally sensitive. All of the lands are grant eligible. All of the lands would benefit Martin County for conserving into the future. We know we're not going to acquire every single parcel out there, but there's enough parcels that are targeted that are worth acquiring that there are enough willing sellers to do that.
So over 10 years, and Shannon, I saw your comment. She says 10 years, LOL, just 10 years. 10 years is a decade. It is a long time to be collecting a half-cent tax. In that time, it'll generate about $183 million. Merritt, at the end of that time, let's say you still have $25 million available. What happens to the money after 10 years that hasn't been spent to purchase land?
It still has to be spent and used by the terms of this ordinance and referendum. So the tax would end after 10 years. But if the money hasn't been spent at that time, this is a hypothetical.
Right.
But say there's $25 million. They could still only purchase lands within these 4 outlined regions for the purpose of protecting water quality and restoring natural lands in those areas. So the tax might end. And if there is funding there, and that has happened in other areas around the state, but the county has the ability to bond up to 80% of the estimated revenue on day one. And that's a financial move so that you're not waiting 10 years, because as we all know, and we've seen, and one of the driving forces behind this, people are moving to South Florida. Land is ever increasing in cost. So if they can bond up to 80% of the $180 million and start making purchases January 1st of 2025, it's a better financial move for the taxpayers to put this land in conservation at current market prices, even though we're leveraging money that stretches out for 10 years.
That's a good point, and I didn't realize that. I'm glad you brought that up because land values will certainly go up. The cost of money, everything goes up over time. So you don't have to wait for the money to come in. If this passes, you're guaranteed that 183 million,
Yes.
basically. So that's why they're able to leverage that for bonds, 80% of it.
Yes.
So very key. Again, we're speaking with Merritt Matheson. We're talking about the Martin County Forever Tax. It's going to be on the ballot November 5th. It's a half-cent sales tax for 10 years. If you have any questions or comments for Merritt, you're welcome to call the studio, 220-WSTU, 772-220-9788. I'm also watching here for comments on the Facebook Live feed. I see a lot of people are tuning in. It's such a very important topic that a lot of people are curious about, so I appreciate you coming in today, Merritt.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about, we talked about with the Blue Waterways land that it would be a parking lot, possibly a boat ramp. What about the other lands that are not the blue designation? What can they be used for?
The other lands, you could feasibly have a joint effort for an STA in some of the lands in the future. A stormwater treatment area through South Florida Water Management District could happen. You cannot build a golf course in any of these. You cannot build a water park.
Thank goodness.
You could have
No.
biking trails, low impact recreational opportunities. That low impact, at the most, the most intense impact could be a parking lot, a trailhead. Now, creating a stormwater treatment area at first would be invasive species removal, but the end outcome of that is a man-made recreated wetland with native plants that filter and clean water and remove the nitrogen and phosphorus before it goes back into our water supply.
Are there any protections, seeing that people are paying for this? It's going to be a tax on us. Are there any protections for the future where people are going to be able to access this land for free? Nobody's going to start charging for parking. I mean, in the past, there's even been, initiatives. Let's charge for beach parking. Are there any protections for us that we're paying for? Are we going to be able to use these lands?
Yes. Now, some of this land could purchase for conservation easements, or, for example, the stormwater treatment area in your Lagoon South. Not all of that land can be used for public, but there's specific times they are going to open it up and have opened it up already. But while it was under construction, it was not open to the public. Now you can apply for hunting permits for duck hunting there. You can go and canoe and kayak there, and this land is not going to be pay for use land.
Okay.
The only exception to that might be there is terms that allow for purchase of conservation easements on privately owned land. And that, for example, might be a farmer in some of these designated areas would be willing to sell any development rights he has to change from his existing farm use anything further. And if he sells that, he would have to be bound by the conservation easement terms, upholding the land as it is, as a farming it.
Okay.
But he might not be forced to allow public use on that land, but it could not be developed any further. It would have to remain in its current condition.
Linda has an excellent question. Thank you for submitting this. Who is responsible for maintaining the trailheads, water treatment, etc., after the lands are acquired?
Great question. Part of the reason we structured these 4 areas is because we were looking from the taxpayers to provide the seed money for the land purchase, but not long-term costs. So if you break down each of the parcels, for example, Palmar, a lot of that land the deed would still be in Martin County, but if it's purchased, would most likely be managed by the DEP or FWC, State Parks Division. So they would then be responsible for the long-term management of that land. Indian River Lagoon South, a lot of that land, the C-44 reservoir and STA, eventually will be managed by South Florida Water Management District. It's in Martin County, and the deed would be in Martin County, but the long-term management, it's public land, would be by the state agency.
Interesting.
Expanding Jonathan Dickinson State Park, some of the Loxo-Lucy Headwaters region could expand Jonathan Dickinson State Park. The underlying deed would be in Martin County, but the long-term management would be by Florida State Parks. Now, the exception to that is the Florida Blueways program. These are smaller parcels. Most likely, those would still be managed by the county. But these are much smaller parcels, but they're undeveloped along the waterfront. A lot of our beaches, again, were purchased by that. But some of those beaches that you talked about closing the land or charging for public parking. That's the beauty, is that they, even during COVID, they couldn't close those beaches, and a lot of the people talked about that, because there was state grant money on top of the local tax dollars. So that there was public land with multiple layers of protection to keep it public. And that's the beauty of Martin County. You want to go to the beach, you get in your car and go to the beach. You go down south to Miami, you want to go to the beach, you better be ready to pay to park.
Right.
Or
That's exactly
walk
right.
half a mile.
Mhm.
And that's how it works.
The Blue Waterways, this just occurred to me, that's, anything that's, on or near the water. Would you guys actually look at targeting, I don't want to say targeting, would you look at purchasing residential properties? Is there anything in there that, somebody's selling their house on
It wouldn't fall under the program because it would have a house. under
Okay.
it. So it has to be undeveloped
Okay.
parcels
All right.
to that for it to fall under that program.
Perfect. Folks, this is, you can look up a lot of information, and Merritt, you've covered so much here today. I feel
Thank
like
you,
we've learned a
thank
lot, and there's been some great questions that have come out because it's the concerns
These
for
are
everybody.
important questions, and we've done our best as a committee to work with and address every question and concern, because this is a really big deal to ask taxpayers to tax themselves, but we're asking them to do that from our heart for the future of Martin County.
You are, and you're trying to gain their trust. And unfortunately, that's just the nature of government and things that have happened in the past that you have to overcome. So I think that you're doing a fabulous job coming out and just answering the questions, no matter how tough they can be. MartinCountyForever.com, that's the website, MartinCountyForever.com. Jim Snedeker, he was supposed to be in here today, but is feeling a little under the weather. So, Merritt, you've done a fantastic job covering
Thank
for
you.
him. But
And
he's
I
your
want
chairperson.
Jim Snedeker, a little sick today, couldn't make it, but he's the leader of this cause. He's our fabulous chairperson, putting this together out there, following up with every email nonstop, leading our committee, and he's been doing this for almost 2 years.
And your
and
committee
it's
is a labor of
entirely
love.
volunteer,
Yes.
a labor of love. Jim is amazing, and he's led this charge because it's his home too.
Gary has one more question. We're running out of time here. How about if half the property is considered wetland bordering a drainage canal?
I don't.
I'm not sure what the question
Yes,
is exactly
I don't
either.
necessarily know what the question is. For any property to be purchased, it has to be in one of the outlined areas. There are drainage canals in Indian River Lagoon South, and there may be parcels there, and they may be purchased. I don't necessarily understand what the question is.
Yeah. If you can clarify that, Gary, we have just about a minute. I can ask that. But again, Martin County Forever, folks. You want to pick up your yard signs and help with the sign waving. The Firefly Group in Palm City, Stewart Angler Bait and Tackle, and also Stewart City Hall on September 26th. So you can pick up your signs there. Gary said, you said it can't be developed property. So if it was a drainage canal, maybe he's considering that.
Yes, I don't know that a drainage canal would fall under the Blue Ways program.
Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Martin County Forever, Merritt Matheson. We're going to sign off today with a fabulous song that you guys have. We're going to listen to the whole thing. You can go to the YouTube channel, listen to it. It's a very catchy tune about Martin County Forever, martincountyforever.com. Merritt, it's been a fabulous hour. I appreciate you taking this time again and wish you well here on November 5th.
Thank you so much, Casey. Please come out to our events and ask me more questions.
Merritt will be around, and martincountyforever.com for those events. So we are going to sign off now, and I will see you next Wednesday. Listen to this great tune.
Let's buy the land before it's gone. It's what we're all counting on. Precious pennies can do the trick. Let's buy the land and buy it quick. More open spaces, more wildlife places. Our hometown greener, our water cleaner. More open spaces, more wildlife places. Our hometown greener, our water cleaner. Let's buy the dirt, let's buy the land. Let's do it now and take a stand. 'Cause once it's gone forever. Let's do it now. We're in this together. More open spaces, more wildlife places. Our hometown greener, our water cleaner. More open spaces, more wildlife places. Our hometown greener, our water cleaner. In Martin County, we're different here. These are the things that we hold dear. But if you think it's too high a cost, then our paradise might soon be lost. Less open spaces, less wildlife places. Our hometown less green, our water less clean. So let's buy the dirt, let's buy the land. Let's do it now, let's take a stand. 'Cause once it's gone forever. Let's do it now. We're in this together.